Bitch is a Bad Word podcast is for informational purposes only and reflects the opinions of the host and guests. It contains explicit content and discusses sensitive topics such as domestic abuse, sexual assault, and violence, which may be distressing to some listeners. Please take care of your emotional well-being while listening. While we strive for accuracy, we make no warranties about the completeness or reliability of the information, and any reliance on it is at your own risk. We do not endorse third-party views and are not liable for any defamatory claims. Listeners should conduct their own research and consult professionals before making decisions. If you or someone you know is in danger, please call 911 or contact the National Domestic Abuse Hotline 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at 800-799-7233 or text START, S-T-A-R-T, to 88788. We've got your back, besties. Caliber Studios has not independently verified the information you're about to hear. Reality isn't always what it seems. It's what you make of it. Sons of Anarchy actress Ali Walker debuts her electrifying new thriller, The Light Runner, on June 6th at Amazon and Barnes & Noble. But our bestie gang can pre-order it now at aliwalkerofficial.com. She's a baddie. She's your new bestie, and we've got her back. Go visit her website, aliwalkerofficial.com, and pre-order The Light Runner now. Welcome back to this episode of Bitch Sesh. We have your new bestie, Jenn from the Single Mom Society, joining us today. Thank you and welcome to our show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
I love your content, by the way.
Thank you.
It's super fresh. It's super sassy. It's all the things that I love. And inspirational. You have a very great message. So tell me how you started this society.
Well, it's funny because I have a background in neurolinguistics processing. So I have, it's, fairly woo-woo kind of, not therapy, but I mean, they call it officially coaching, but you go deep with people. It's almost kind of hypnotic. And so I was trying to do that on Instagram, like send my message out, but via this woo-woo concept. And I was literally losing followers. So one day my daughter was at camp and I gotten my nails done, and I don't know why, but I just did it all sarcastically and just was like, hey, don't make your poor ex pay child support. That's just too stressful for him. And it just took off. So I was like, all right, I guess we're going with sarcasm, which is definitely a part of me there. It's not like it's hard, but I still, all of my messages have a systemic component to them. They point to something that's wrong. So it's funny, but we're also going to talk about the important things.
Yeah. The deep dive into it. So what is are you coming from a place of experience personally? Or are you coming from people that you've coached?
Yeah, so I've had 2 marriages, and both were mistakes. Both I knew before I shouldn't marry them, and I did anyway. And so I think that's one of my big things that I want people to know, that it seems so scary to walk away when you've gone that far with somebody, like, oh gosh, you'd have to move out and all this stuff. Well, that will happen anyway if you have to get divorced. So, so you may as well, it's just hard. My son went through a breakup last year, and it was hard. And I was really proud of him because it hurt so much, and he really cares about her still, but it just wasn't the ultimate right match. And that's something I just never had the bravery to do. And I really believe that girls are taught, and I think it's different now, but we were taught, the goal is to get married. The goal is to get married and find your partner, and that's your soulmate, and then you're going to have kids, and everything's going to fall into place. But that's not how that doesn't have to be everybody's story. And so I was so hurried to find my soulmate, not realizing that I'm surrounded by soulmates. You're a soulmate, we're all connected. And so it doesn't have to be romantic. I got really, and after my first marriage, I got really just so hyper focused on finding the next person so that I could do it properly. And then now I've been divorced almost 10 years and almost 11. And now I'm like, hey, if I never meet anybody again, that's fine. If I do, I would love it. But if I don't, I have such a good life. So it's just a really different way of seeing things. But yeah, so both of them, the first one, they were both abusive in different ways. My first one was he would withhold, he wouldn't talk to me, he would punish me if I did anything that was fun. If I went to the grocery store once with one of my best friends had come to visit, and he was so mad when we got home. And I'm just like flipping out, angry. And she said, Jen, you've got to get out of this. And I said, I can't. I'll be a single mom. And she said, you already are. Mm-hmm. And that was like, whoa, like that was huge. And then
and he's like upset about the fact that you went grocery shopping and it would have been fun with your friend, or that you're like squeezing all the melons and you're like looking at the big bananas.
Hitting on all the men there. I mean, going on dates as, in the aisles. He just didn't like that I was smiling. I came home smiling and it made him mad. And there was another time I went to yoga with my mom and I came home and my little baby was 1, and he came up to me and he patted his tummy and he said, Mommy, pasta? And I said, did you feed the baby? And he said, oh, I forgot. And I was like, it always takes it. It's one thing when it's to you, but then when it's to your kid, you draw the line. Mm-hmm. And so I went into the kitchen and he came in and I thought he was going to like hug me or something, but instead he like pushed me out of his way. And I was like, okay, like it was just like a culmination of all these little moments that I was like, okay, I can't be here. I can't, if he's not going to feed our son, like what's the point? So
how long did you stay when you?
I had a woman that was my facialist at the time. And she said to me, she was maybe in her 70s. And she said, the first time I left my marriage, he came and got me and I went back. And then 4 years later, I was doing it again. And I was 28 at the time when she told me that. And I was like, I'm not going to do that. I don't want to be 32 and doing this again. And so with that one, I really stuck to it. I remember he would, do like I had left with the baby, went to my parents' house, and he bought me, it was back when Legally Blonde was popular. And so he bought me one of those bracelets, the Tiffany toggle bracelet. Okay. And, it was like, oh, okay, that's great. But, it's not going to work anymore. What actually happened too was that he had his MBA and he was so smart, but he had zero motivation. And so he was just sitting around in the dark, not using his education. And we were running out of insurance, or we were going to not have insurance anymore. And so I said, I went to Starbucks and I interviewed, and I can go to work at 4 a.m. and work till 8 a.m. and then come home and the baby won't really know that I've been gone. And I meant it. I absolutely had gone and interviewed, and he said, okay. And then I was like, wait a minute, like, why is that okay with him that his wife would get up at 4 a.m. to go to work, or 3 a.m., right, to get to work, and then come home at 4 and then be on mom duty? And that was when I was like, okay, this is not acceptable. So, it was tough because I felt like he was like a lion. Like he would pace outside my bedroom because at first we were still in the same house. And And then he would follow me, like he followed me, and I would just like drive to my brother's house and go inside, and he would just wait outside my brother's house. So he's very dark. He's still, we're friends now, you know, like 20 something years later. We'll always be family because of my son, but my son just went there and he lives in Brazil now. And my poor son, you know, is 24 years old and calling, crying, like, it's so dark, Mom. It's just the whole mood. It's just dark. So, yeah. So I got out of that and then kind of rushed. And I met this guy and he seemed so charming and funny. And I didn't understand anything about addiction. And he had told me that he had been an addict, but that he was one of the lucky ones who had overcome it. And I was like, okay, cool. That's great. You know, super. I don't know anything about addiction. So it just ended up being a disaster. So that my first marriage was about 5 years and the second was 6. And it only lasted that long because I didn't want to disappoint my kids and the nieces and nephews, like everybody who had divorced parents. I felt like I had to stay together to show everybody this is what a good, healthy marriage looks like. And, you know, it's been pointed out to me since then that I actually showed them what a good, healthy woman looks like as opposed to sticking in this unhealthy marriage. So, but I stayed for quite a long time. And, you know, and then the whole thing of like feeling like you can fix the situation and, you know, I've been listening to your show and just so many memories were popping up. And I remember we had been at the airport, even just driving to the airport, the whole trip had been awful. And then when we got to the airport, he was giggling a lot. And when we went through TSA, the woman said to me, he was stuck. He couldn't get through. They kept checking his bag. And I'm standing there with the kids and the TSA agent came over to me and said, I can see a knife in his bag, but he won't show me where it is. But I can see it on the x-ray, but I can't see it. You know, I can't find it. Can you help me? And I went over and I was like, do you have a fucking knife in your bag? And he's like, ha ha, laughing. And I'm like, this isn't funny. Like, and I went away from him. Like I got my kids and I was like pushing the stroller through the airport and I had tears just popping out of my eyes. And the next morning I said, I can't be married to you. And actually too, when we got to the airport, he went off and did a drug deal. I didn't know that's what he was doing, but he disappeared.
Oh my God. And, was he on drugs too?
Yeah. As it turns out, he was
needed the knife for the drug deal. And then he's laughing because he's on drugs.
Yeah. And so I said, I can't be married to you anymore. And then, you know, even after that, that was January. And then I didn't officially leave until August after another crazy, you know.
Do you want to share?
That one was, so he would get injured all the time because he could get pills. And so he was always like literally, like we have video footage of him going up on our roof and then deliberately falling backward.
So he could get like drugs.
Yeah. And it's funny because my son was like 14 at the time, but he would put, like my son knew what was happening and he put the footage to Sesame Street music. And so you'd see like this guy falling from this thing and it was like his body was so stiff and like, oh God. Anyway, so he hurt his shoulder and needed to have surgery, which is like his dream. And I was like, you've got to have a narcotic-free surgery. We got to figure that out. So, of course, the codependent me, I'm calling everybody in the world to try to find a narcotic-free surgery. And I found one. And so he gets the surgery. They put a catheter in his neck and then it went and blocked the shoulder. So there should be absolutely no pain. And of course, he gets out of surgery and immediately, oh, it's not working. So they bring in this poor tech who's like, God, I don't know why it's not working. I'm so sorry.
Oh my God.
It looks like it should be working. And every time I would leave the room and they would offer him narcotics and he would say yes. And I'd come back and I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, we haven't even left here yet. And then they said to me, you need to have a bottle just in case. Like, if something happens in the middle of the night and he's in excruciating pain, you need to have these on hand. And I was like, I don't feel comfortable having them in the house. And sure enough, I got them, and I had hidden them in a pair of socks in my glove compartment. I don't know why. And he found them. And so we were sitting around, and he would do a nod off thing. Like, I would see his head, like, nod forward, his eyes closed. And I saw that and I was like, like, that's familiar. And then my dad was in town and I was exercising on the treadmill, and we were watching this seafair, like this big festival on TV. And I saw my dad outside and I go, oh, my dad's here. And he goes, oh, where? And he's looking at the TV, like my dad's on TV. And I was like, okay. And so I went to the glove compartment and I came back and I said, there's only 22 pills left. And he's like, whose are those pills?
Oh my God.
And by that point too, the rule was, I know you're going to use again. I just don't want to be lied to. That was the boundary. But he was like, those aren't mine. Boundary. Right? But, and I have learned recently, actually listening to Denise Richards, the way she looks at addiction is that it's not forever necessarily. That would be great. But it's like, oh, congratulations. This is the longest you've ever gone without using. And so it's like a different way to think about it. Like, they might use again. It's to think that they wouldn't for their entire life. That's a pretty big commitment for somebody that's struggling. So I guess that's kind of where my head was at. But he lied and, pretended they weren't his and was so confused. And I happened to have therapy that day. And I said to the therapist, do you think I'm doing the right thing? And she said, has he crossed every boundary you've ever set? And I said, yeah. She's like, okay, what do you think? And I was like, all right. And so, I really stuck to it. And it was interesting because I came home and I said to my son, this is it. I'm sticking to it this time. I'm really sorry. And he was like, thank God. And he was so glad. He was just like, I couldn't wait for you to figure this out. So he knew. And then it was, the next step was just my ex not believing it, because I had, relented so many times. So he would play me so well, and this is advice that I give to women. I would have to put his name in my phone as don't be fooled or slick, so that if it came up, I was like reminded, like, okay, don't be fooled. Mm-hmm. Don't be fooled.
Oh, that's good.
And yeah. And, but he came over and I had bought him this beautiful brand new Lexus when we were married, and then took it back when we split, but gave him my grandma's older Lexus. And so he came in and he's telling me that this Lexus had just basically exploded at Starbucks and everyone's staring at him and he needs a new car. And I just automatically go to my computer and I start looking up cars, like plugging in something safe for my daughter, but good for his work and all of this stuff. And I'm like, all of a sudden, I'm like, wait a minute. He's in the other room playing with my daughter. He's having a great time. They're giggling and laughing. I'm here on the computer. He was at Starbucks. So how much could he be suffering for money? And I stopped. I just stopped. And I went upstairs to my room, and he came up to my bedroom and he said, I really need some money. Your birthday set me back. And I said, okay, my birthday was in June. It's September. But also, I paid for everything for my birthday. You didn't pay for anything. How did it set you back? And he knew in that moment that I knew, and that I had finally gotten it, and I saw through him. And he stormed out, and he was sitting in my driveway for the longest time. And then I looked at the phone records, and that's when he first called 1-800-DIVORCE. And
oh, wow. He got really creative.
Yeah. And I mean, you don't want 1-800-DIVORCE involved, because they're just, the junkiest, chasers. They just want to cause conflict. And it was messy. So, yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Did you get him a new car though?
No.
I met him at my daughter's college graduation. I pictured being in a fight with him. He was my daughter's boyfriend. 20 days later, he took her life when she tried to break up with him. When Dating Hurts is the name of my podcast. I knew I could not bring Kristen back, but believed I could help others who became tangled up in dating abuse and domestic violence. My guests are domestic violence survivors. Who knows more about the toxicity, the entrapment, devious manipulation, the loneliness, the pain and suffering than brave survivors who live to tell about it? Their stories are raw, intimate, plain-spoken, deeply personal. For many, this is the first time they've told their stories in one place. Today's survivors want current victims to know there are ways to achieve freedom. There is a process that's safe, that this can happen to anyone, and that you are not alone. Join me and my courageous guests on the When Dating Hurts podcast. It's a series of lives being saved.
So your ex is an addict.
Yeah.
And addicts shouldn't really be around kids unless they're clean.
Right.
So how do you navigate that?
So he's had the parenting plan has always been like one of those that they like make it like, 6 months do this, then in 12 months you can do this, and then in 18 months you'll have her. I don't think it was ever 50-50, but it was like 30-70 or something. But he's in 10 years, almost 11 years, he's never done it. So it just requires a drug test, like regular drug testing. And then at first it's quite a bit, and then it peters off. He doesn't have to do as many drug tests, but he is supposed to have a supervisor for a certain amount of time. I was supervising because who else were we going to get? And I really wanted my daughter to see him. And then it dawned on me, like that's still being codependent. I have to protect myself. Every time I'm around him, it's awful for me. And so if he wants to see her, he needs to figure it out. I don't have to be in charge. And that was really hard for her because she was, in her head, she's like, Mommy, just fix it. You can fix it. All you have to do is see him. And so that was really hard to set that boundary with her, not as much with him, but yeah. And so now he I let him come to her performances. She performs like quarterly, and so he comes to those, and they're public. And he brought his dad last time, which was amazing because she hadn't seen her grandfather in like 9 years. So yeah,
it's tragic though too, because like she's the one that's suffering, and it's just like the inability or not having the wherewithal to even understand that is just, that's the addiction, right?
Yeah. I mean, he's, he claims he's clean, but bless you.
Thank you.
But I have seen photos of him out and about that my friends will send me that would indicate he's not. But, I always say that's like the ultimate form of gaslighting, because like gaslighting, if he says, I haven't been drinking, that's just mouthwash. And so you're like, okay, that seems weird, but then there's like gaslighting where you're like, I saw photos.
Right. Yeah.
I saw photos, but I still don't know if it's true. So I don't know. So, my guess is he's not, because if you were clean and working your program properly, then you would do the things you would want to do the things, but I don't know. I've stopped trying to figure out what goes on in other people's minds.
Yeah, we have enough going on in our own minds that we don't need to be worrying about other people's shit.
Yes, exactly. And you cannot figure out how anyone else thinks. You just can't, especially when somebody is, under the influence of something. You really cannot figure it out.
So on your platform, you talk a lot about child support and like deadbeat baby daddies, which I love because I hear so many stories. I have personal experiences where like child support is like such a point of contention for some people, and they just can't do it. I've heard why do we need the government involved with like figuring out the money? We have equal custody, so you pay for them when they're with you and I'll pay for them when I'm with me. But hold on, let's like go back to the real story. I was a stay-at-home mom for a really long time. So where's the money you're wanting me to use?
Yeah.
I don't quite, you don't, these, and, child support is like a privilege, not a right.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
they think I've got stories in a personal one where it's like, the money's being sent is like basically it's laughable. And it's like having to ask for it every month. And you're like, what the fuck do you think I'm doing with this money? So I love I love yours where you're like, hi, I'm just calling to like get all my Botox and my whatever with my child support. Cause it's like, really? Like this is legit money going in their kid's mouth.
Well, and it's so silly because, somebody the other day wrote like, my ex does all of this stuff. The men love coming in the comments and, my wife does this and this and this, and our kids have holes in their shoes. So I always, one of the things I always say is send her our way because I'm sure we'd get along well with her. But I was like, wow, in order to do what you've just named, you probably have to pay her at least $5,000 a month. And they're paying, maybe $100, maybe $400 if somebody's lucky. So, who are they kidding that they can do all of that stuff? So I don't understand their math is off. Yeah. Like they do math like it's, 1950 that people can buy things for that.
The math ain't mathin'. This is like deadbeat dad math.
And it doesn't make sense to me. Like it's your child. So like that's kind of been my new thing lately is like single moms are, and very clear to your audience, I'm talking about deadbeat dads. I'm not talking about single dads. I'm not talking about men, deadbeat dads. They don't make money to help their kids like we do, right? We're like, okay, God, shit, I got to get a good job. I got to be able to, pay for my kids. What do they need? They need these activities. They need camp. They need clothes, all this stuff. But the guys are like, oh shit, I have to share that money and I wanted to spend it in all these ways. Mm-hmm. And it's just this different way of thinking. And I don't understand it. I don't understand how you can't want to support your own child.
I'm not sure if it's a way of thinking. I wonder if it's just another way of controlling.
That's very true, for sure. Yeah, but I think there is a component in there that their money is not, like my money is for my kid. I mean, it's like, that's why I do things. But their money is like, okay, I have all these things that I want to do with it. I just think that there is a thinking component to it too. Of course, there's control for sure. There was somebody I was listening to, one of your guests, who was talking about the debit card and, going to the grocery store and maybe not having money at the grocery store and then having to call and ask for money and that kind of thing. Like for sure that is bad control.
Yeah, that's like I don't know what it is because it used to happen to me too. And she had an interesting perspective on it because I said, oh, it's like control to embarrass me and like just remind me of who's in charge. And then her thought for her situation was that it gave him an opportunity to be a hero. Like, let me fix it for you. I don't feel that happened in mine, but maybe. But I thought that was an interesting thought because the child support is dumb. I mean, like, it's like it's like clothes. No one else can wear the clothes. And I say this all the time. I'm like, I can't wear the shoes. Like they don't fit anybody else in this house. The clothes don't fit anybody else in this house. Nobody else is going to the camp. No one else is riding the bike. No one else. It's like, so what the fuck? And I don't, you don't want to help you're not helping me. You are helping our child.
Right.
And the same thing, camps come up and you're like, I have less means, but I somehow get it done. And they're like, I'll pay you after you show me 17 receipts, a blood sample, and freaking, like how they're going to get there and what time. And then I'll pay you your half. And you're like, you're never going to pay me this half. Like,
I'm not going to go to all that trouble.
You're not hurting me. Like, it's just, I think you're a bigger dick, but you're not like, if he doesn't pay, then they maybe don't go. So again,
Right.
I have a great schedule. I can be with my kids anytime. They're going to
Yeah.
camp so they can have some fun with their friends. That's it.
Yeah.
You're not helping me out and you're not hurting me. So can you try harder to like be better versus trying harder to hurt? Like,
And that's one of the jokes I always say too. Like, my ex works so hard to make things hard for us, or
Yeah.
like don't make it harder. Just don't make it easier. That's fine, but don't make it harder. Yeah. Like this morning, my daughter woke up and she's 13 and she was just having a morning,
Yeah.
like that's really all it was. And I actually ended up feeding her, and then it was like a remarkable difference. Her blood sugar changed and it was fine, but she ended up going to school maybe an hour late. He doesn't know that. He'll never know that.
Right.
Like, that doesn't affect him. His schedule is his schedule. He doesn't have to, if I had had a meeting, any sooner, we were at 10 o'clock, but if I had had something sooner, it would have gotten affected.
yeah,
So,
that's such an interesting point. 'Cause like there's the emotional well-being of the children that's being taken care of that money doesn't pay for.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm a single mom too. I've been married twice. And I raised my first set of children by myself. And there's a lot of times where the kids and I will have conversations like, I don't think they understand like how much effort and work goes into just making sure their emotional well-being is taken care of. And that's a daily thing. And that's not a check in the checking account. That's like how you're having a meltdown now. You're upset about your outfit. You're upset about your friends. All that shit is part of the job. And if you're carrying that on your own, that's a huge burden. I mean, not like a bad burden, but there's a lot there. So like, again, why would you want to make all the rest of it even harder?
Yeah.
There's a guy, I think he was like, you were talking, I don't know if it's you, but like Chris something or other. And he's like a pro, like bad dad, like pro moms. And he like highlights the bad dads. But he said recently, like, this is the mother of your children. Why do you want to fuck around with their emotional well-being and like any state of their life? Like you would, if you have the opportunity and the means, you would want to make it amazing for them so they can be the best version of the mom taking care of your offspring.
Do you know Chantal Contarini's? I don't know if you've seen her. She's great. You can follow her, people. But she talks a lot about that. But when she was on my podcast, she said, the truth is that they don't love their kids, right? Like and if they do, it's not in the way that we love them. They can love them but you can't love your children if you are making their mother, their caregiver, miserable. Like, you have to be able to go, okay, that's going to affect my children. Like, that's a different kind of love when you can look that far.
Yeah. Okay, so what's the most ridiculous moment you've had as a single mom where you just had to laugh or you would cry?
Oh my gosh. That's so hard. Because, I've kind of like you, I've had 2 stages of single mom. So my son was 11 when my daughter came. And so I raised him by myself. And then now I raise her by myself. And they're so different because he's super chill and she's probably more like me. And so it's more interesting. But I don't know. The first thing that came to my head, oh God, I don't know if it's not funny, but when I was younger and my son was younger, I was trying to parent more like I'd been raised, like, very strict, polite, and all this stuff. So we were at a restaurant in Italy, and my son came up to me and was like, Mommy, my cousins are teasing me. And in my head, I'm thinking of my dad. And, my dad's sitting next to me, and he's going to get mad that the little kid's whining. And so I went into that mode, and I was like, stop, we're in Italy, and you're being spoiled. And so I took him outside, and I was giving him a piece of my mind. And, then my brother came outside and he goes, Jen, I just need to tell you, you're not outside the restaurant. You're actually inside the restaurant, just in a different part that's like blocked off by some trees. So everyone's listening to you. And I mean, I just wanted to die, obviously. But then I still didn't stop. Like it was almost his birthday, so they were going to give him a stick of dynamite in his cake. And I didn't let him have that. Like I went that far. And then later that night, I was like, this is my favorite person on earth. Why am I treating him like this? And then from then on, I just changed the way I parented. And like even a couple years later, something similar happened and we were in London and he had a little meltdown and I just took him from the table and we left and we walked around London for 6 hours by ourselves. So that's just, so my daughter gets that benefit of me being that parent. That's all she knows. But my son says he doesn't remember the other stuff, which is good. But yeah,
well, it's
I don't know.
because you're also trying to be both parents or like offer,
Yeah.
and that's not possible.
Yeah. 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 And I feel like, like the day that my son went to college, his dad had posted something online about like it was the band's birthday, like a band member's birthday or like the anniversary of a band or something. He had no idea that his son was going to college that day. He lives in a different country. He didn't know. And then that same day, my daughter was like starting kindergarten or there was something big happening for her. And so I was driving back and forth throughout Seattle doing her thing and then back to him. And I was just back and forth, like moving him in. And they don't know any of that stuff. It's wild. And we do it, right? We don't even think about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What do you think is like the single myth about single motherhood?
There's so many that I like to point to, that I like to jab at. The single myth about motherhood from our perspective or from theirs. So I think that one of the things, so I'm going to start, it's launching on Mother's Day, but I have a single mom website and it's, the concept behind it is that 24/7, you'll have somebody that you can talk to somewhere in the world who's experienced what you're going through, but we'll also have experts and blah, blah, blah. So what was I going to say? What was my question? Was what is our myth? So one of the things that I want to focus on in there is that, yes, it's hard and we can complain about all of these things, the child support and if they cheated and all of this stuff. But we have a fucking good life now because we were brave enough to leave and we don't have to come home to somebody who's being mean to us or dread them coming home. And we get to do whatever we want, any time of the day. We can cook what we want for dinner. Like there's just so much freedom. So I think that part of being a single mom gets lost because we have all these things that we're annoyed about, but there's actually a lot of beauty in it.
I love that. It's true because you said it earlier, you're already a single mom. If you're in a relationship with somebody who's abusive or toxic, they're not your co-parent in your relationship either. They're not your partner. They're making your life hell. So it's making everything you do harder. And when you finally have the bravery to leave, you think it's going to be hard as shit. I mean, it is hard as shit, but you have all these other freedoms back, emotional, like going to the grocery store with your friend without coming home to somebody pissed off. That's huge. And I don't think people realize that and you can't, because you're just like, they're going to make your life hell when you leave too. They're going to try their best, right?
Yeah.
But you get to have your sanctuary and your home space that no one else can fuck with. And that is pretty amazing.
Yeah. I mean, it's scary, I always say too, how many women, and you hear it in the news all the time, how many people choose to murder somebody as opposed to just getting divorced, right? But, there were times where, my first husband would be like, I'm going to go kill myself. And then he would leave. And there was part of me that was like, I kind of hope he does it, because that would be easier than having to like tell everyone I'm getting divorced, But obviously that's not what I want. And if there's FBI listening, I don't want anyone dead. But But, like there is this part that people are like, they would prefer that over just it seems so hard to get divorced. And there's so much stigma, and it's just so scary to do it. And then once you finally make that decision, I just like always want people to know, then it gets easier, It's just like getting over that big hill. And then, and you need to do it. You need to do it. And then when you get over that hill, then you can just like relax and come down the rest of the hill. And then I always say that's where the jewels are waiting. Like the jewels of your bravery are sitting there waiting for you.
I love that. It's a message to everyone that these types of people too, they're not going to, I've like 2 of your guys didn't ask you for the divorce, but then like, we're happy that you did it. That's fucking huge, because that's what their goal is. They want to peg you as the leaver. You broke up the family, therefore I don't want to give you anything. And that's what I kind of feel is like, sort of, they can do this forever. They don't care. They're in it one way or the other, but they want to be able to win something and be the victim maybe.
Well, and they're still getting their laundry done, and their meals are cooked, and their kids are being taken care of. Like, why would they leave? It's a great setup, So all of a sudden, when we walk away, then they have to. That's one of the things I love watching. It's kind of a scary move, but when you are dealing with somebody who is dragging you through family court, and they're claiming they want all this custody. If you say like, here you go, this is what it looks like. I'm not giving you the snacks that they need to eat. I'm not going to help you with this and this and this. All of a sudden it's real, and they're really not that interested in having 50-50 custody. So it's a risk that you could take by, playing that card. But
it's that theme that goes around all over the place. Like the same guy who wouldn't give you 10 minutes to take a shower is the same guy who wants 50-50.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Sarah Wayne Callies, and I played Dr. Sarah Tancredi on Prison Break.
And I'm Paul Edelstein, and I played Agent Paul Kellerman on Prison Break. Please join us on our rewatch podcast, Prison Breaking, with Sarah and Paul.
We're going to have all kinds of guests and never-before-told stories, so follow us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. And you can subscribe to our watch party on the link there. We can't wait to see you there.
And follow us on Instagram at Prison Break Podcast. See you there.
Okay, so tell us more about the community you're building, and like what are single moms finding when they connect with you?
So when we're on Instagram or social media, we have these trolls. We've been talking about them. These guys come on today. Something I did has really lit the male community up, and it's by the male community, it's those kind of militant groups that are very anti-women. And so somebody will get a hold of it, and then they'll tag the leader. So I've gotten a couple tags today for like people that have like 200,000 followers, like these angry men. So I'm like, okay, here we go. And there's the same, one guy put everything all in one sentence. I was like, good job. You got like 5 tropes in one sentence. But it's that we should have kept our legs closed. And, like you said, it's our fault for leaving the marriage. Like every single thing, no one stops and says, how can we blame the man? The man cheated on her, or the man was hitting her, or the man's been not talking to her. I mean, whatever it is, even if the man's just not doing his part in the household and she's exhausted, whatever it is, but it's her fault. And so they will always find a way to blame us. And they are very cruel and condescending. The stuff that has been said to me, I can't even, like, there was like this whole thing about like, keep your stinky slit closed.
Ew.
Your sewer, the sewer in between your legs. I mean, it goes really, really far. And then I always think too, like, don't you like that stinky sewer? Like,
right.
I thought you enjoyed that.
Hold on. If there was a baby made, you put your,
let's
think of a word for that in that slit.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
You didn't have a problem with it then. What the fuck is wrong with people?
I know. So I just did a video last week that was like, God, I just feel so bad for all these men who have been forced to get a hard on and then forced inside and then forced to enjoy it and like, come on, anyway. Yeah. So I want a safe space for women to be able to come. And even I got my hair cut yesterday and the woman was telling me, how women, she would never choose anybody bad. She would never choose somebody that wouldn't be a good father to have kids with. She's not that dumb. I'm like, these women, they don't know. These guys hide it. No one's deliberately choosing a bad father. Mm-mm. So even women have, a lot of women have these perceptions. And so I want a safe place that we can go. And the goal is growth. And whether that means you're coming from, I'm at a 2 right now, things are pretty shit, I don't feel good, I just need to get to a 3, or if you're like, I want to get to a 7, what would that look like? So the plan is for a year and it's rolling. So whenever you start, your year starts. And then let's say it's February, the theme would be like self-love. And then, we'll have another theme about domestic abuse. And, so each month we'll have a theme and then every week we'll divide up a theme to go with that main theme. And then every day there'll be little ways, like little activities to keep you engaged and motivated to meet that. So I really want people to feel like after a year of being there that they see change in themselves. And the change could simply be that they find a sisterhood. Mm-hmm. They find somebody that they can talk to in the middle of the night, that really understands them. And that's a huge thing that a lot of us don't, your friends get sick of hearing what, oh God, I don't want to hear about this again. Just get rid of him. Why are you talking about it so much? It happened in the past. Who cares anymore? So these people understand that. And the other thing too is all of this stuff kicks up when you don't even realize it. Like Erica Jane from Beverly Hills Housewives, she was talking about, was like doing the best she has since her divorce. She was feeling so good. And then in the news, she saw that her ex was getting sentenced. And she said she just dropped right back down into this depression that she was in at the beginning. And she caught herself and pulled herself out of it within a couple days. But that happens, you don't even realize it. And suddenly they have you back, you think you're good. And then they pull you back in and it can rock you. So it's nice to have people that understand that it doesn't just go away.
That we need a community like that because like you said, the friends are tired of hearing. I don't know that they're tired of hearing it. They like whatever it is. You're tired of sharing it too. Cause you're like, you don't understand really. And it's kind of hard. And like, sometimes I'm like, I'm fucking bored of talking about this. Like, I do it all day long on my show and that's great. But then I like, the friends are like, they want the tea and you're like, and my situations are fucking crazy. And I'll say stuff and they're like, how is this even possible? I'm like, I don't even know. Like, I'm so used to wild and crazy and like just shit that just bends your mind. But then I'm like, you must be judging me because like I'd be sitting on the other side being like, what the hell?
Right. But I think also we kind of get into the story, like we're like, oh my gosh, you cannot believe what he did this time. And so, like there's like a little bit of like an addiction to it where we want to talk about it and it is juicy. It's like talking about a TV show, like here's our next installment. So I kind of want people to, I feel like there was a stage, it was during COVID, where I was like, I'm sick of hearing myself talk about this. I don't want to talk about it anymore. And if I don't, then nobody else does. And I think that's kind of when there was like a switch for healing, that I was like, okay. And there's a huge component, and I think that Carla Lido, is that her name? Was talking about it, that no communication, like, that was the best thing that I ever did was go no contact because they just are looking for any hole to get to you, any way that they can get energy from you. And so if you go no contact, they don't have it anymore and they're going to have to go look for it somewhere else. And mine went to the point where he would tattle on me to my attorney because he still wanted to get that loop. And the funny thing was what he tattled on me for was that I had broken the no contact and said, I know you're not clean. You've never made amends to me and you are not accountable. And that's what he went and tattled. I'm like, okay, well, that's just exactly what I said. You just proved my point. You are not. But so I think that's a big thing is, and then this way, if you are tempted to break no contact, you can go online and say, oh my gosh, I'm so furious right now. This is what I'd like to say. So, yeah.
That is so cool. Okay. And then and that launches this summer?
It's Mother's Day.
Oh, Mother's Day. Oh, that's coming up.
Yeah.
Oh, our favorite day where we get to do it all again.
Where everything's the same as it was the day before. Yeah.
I just have to make brunch. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, good. I get to do more work. Okay, cool. But you know what? It's so much better than like chasing a drug addict around. And like, I'm thinking there was it was a Thanksgiving Hanukkah, and my ex was bonkers. And I didn't know why, but he was bonkers. And I had sent him out to get applesauce for latkes, and he came back like 2 hours later. The kids were done eating, and he didn't have applesauce. He had like Mariners t-shirts or something. And so then he's like, oh, well, I guess I'll have to go back out again. And, because then you can go do more trouble. And, and then that night we went to this beautiful dinner, and he just ruined it. So, like, what kind of Thanksgiving is that?
Right. If you were to like count up all the holidays, the birthdays, the special occasions, would they have ruined more than they made better?
Oh, 100%. 100%. Yeah. And the funny thing too was our anniversary was Thanksgiving weekend because we just gave so much thanks for each other. But there was a lot of Thanksgivings and my daughter's birth. There was one trip for my daughter's birthday where he went missing on her birthday, and then it turned out he had been breaking into my brother's house to get my nephew's pain pills. They were out of town, but he knew my nephew had broken his arm, and he had broken into like a bunch of places in the neighborhood. And then my best friend came home. He had called her and said, is your husband home? And she's like, no, he's at work. And he's like, oh, okay. And what are you doing? So he's like feeling them out. And she's like, oh, I'm out and about. And so he went to their house and broke in because their daughter has ADHD. So he was going to get her pills. And my friend happened to come home, and she walked in, and he jumps out of her daughter's room and goes, surprise.
Oh my God. What the fuck?
Yeah. So, and then she didn't tell me for like a few weeks. I called her a few weeks later. I'm like, I just want to tell you he's going back to rehab. And she's like, thank God. I'm like, what do you mean? And she's like, I didn't want to tell you. I didn't want to upset you. And I'm like, you should have called the police, but she didn't want to, hurt her best friend, calling the police. But yeah. Yeah, the stuff we go through.
It would have been way cooler if he had no clothes on or something. Like, he should have just made it even better. Just like jumped out.
I can tell it differently from now on. It's creepy enough that he was coming out of a little girl's room, though.
Oh my God.
So gross.
Oh, that is so gross. Yeah. Shit. Fucking what's wrong with people? I mean, that's like drugs.
Know.
Like, if you're on an addict journey, then get the help and support. People do some crazy things.
Yeah. I had a really great episode too on my podcast with an addiction expert, and she gave some really, really good insight and advice. So that's just Single Mom Society podcast. So yeah.
Oh man. Okay. Well, you are crushing it as a single mom in this society.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
You do bring a lot of hope, not hope. I fucking hate that word, actually.
Well, hopefully.
Live, laugh, love. No, it's because the hope is hard, because it's like I don't even know what it means when you're in this sort of situation. It's like whatever it is, you bring a lot of light and just awareness to something. And I love that the message is this: like, leaving a bad life, bad marriage, toxic, abusive, whatever those things are, there's like nothing wrong with that. Mm-hmm. And if you have kids, it's like, okay, we have kids, like that's the life that you have right now. And I love that what you do is it's encouraging, and we're going to be called I mean, I was called a radical feminist in family court, and I was like, really? Because like what? But we're going to be called radical
family court's a whole nother story.
We're going to be trying to break up the world, but it's like, no, you're breaking generational trauma. You're doing your kids a favor by removing them, because that's what it is, from this shit, and they're better off for it for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, the first time my ex went to rehab, I was so humiliated. I mean, I was still like living in I'd grown up in an island where it was very gossipy, and so I was like, oh my God, my second marriage, my husband's in rehab, and then my grandma died. And so I knew that everyone was going to find out because he wouldn't be at the funeral. So I called the facility, and I had this naive entitlement. I'm like, no, this is different. I get to talk to him. And they're like, nope, sorry, you can't talk to him. He's on blackout, sorry. And I'm like, no, this is different. No, it's not. So I said to the counselor, what am I going to tell people at the funeral? And she said, the truth. And I was like, oh, that literally never crossed my mind. That was not on the list. And then she said, because you never know who it will help. And then that changed me. Like really in that very moment, I changed and was like, I'm going to share my story. At first, it was like, I'm not going to share it unless somebody asks. Mm-hmm. If somebody says, how are you? I'll tell the truth. But then it, obviously now, blah, blah, blah. We talk about it all the time, but the shame is so big, and the women don't realize that, first of all, who fucking cares what other people think? But there's nothing to be ashamed about. You're just on a different journey. And I feel like it's a richer journey. I feel like we have this second chance that other people didn't get to try it again. We get to find out who we actually are. We're not stuck in this. I was just reading a story about a woman who went all over. She's on Instagram, where she followed her boyfriend or fiance, here and there, and did all of his dreams, and then he broke up with her. And she actually got lucky because they weren't married and they didn't have kids. But this happens so often that, the script gets flipped, and then it's like, okay, what did I mean to do? What did I really want to do with my life? I used to want to do this. Okay, I'm going to. Or now I want to play drums. I started playing drums at 50 years old. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, I think it's a really big gift to be able to do it.
Yeah, no, and I love that. And it's like, and again, we have one life. We have, and then you get to do it well multiple times, and you get kids out of it. I mean, again, I will never, like what I went through in my relationships that produced children were not ideal, far from it. But would I ever want to do it again differently? No, because I have my kids. Yeah. I have amazing, stories to tell. No, I have, but I have a journey now. I have a way to use the voice and share it. But your kids are the most that's the most amazing. So if it's not ideal and it's not, it's not the dream, but I think the dream is fucking broken. I think we're being told something that's not attainable even. Yeah.
And nobody asks you if you really want it. I mean, at least kids now can say, what's my sexuality? What's my gender? Right. So at least there's some question there, but there's still this whole thing about finding your soulmate, and that's the end all. And I think the younger generation is getting it more, that's not, my nephew's girlfriend, she is not going to follow him necessarily when he goes to grad school in a different state, because she has her own goals, but I know they will get married, but she's not going to do that. And I love that, they're starting to make their own choices. We're not just, I love that, they're starting to make their own.
My daughter did that. She and her high school sweetheart are still together. They ended up going to 2 different colleges. They are still together. They go on trips. They live this great life. And I remember, I've told the story on the show, but I'll share it with you because it's something I've told this story and you'd appreciate this. But when it was time for them they were ready to go to colleges, and they didn't get it. They tried to go to the same college, but they didn't get in to the same places. And then my ex, when she made the decision to go one place and he made the decision to go to another state, he was like, what the fuck? Like, why are you going to college? You should just go to that state and be a waitress where he's going to school and wait for him. And in front of like his family.
Wait, her dad said this?
Well, no, it was like my second. So it wasn't her dad, but
okay.
We were sitting there and he said it to his family. And they're like,
God.
Wait, what? Did you just say that out loud? Like to all of us? So you're saying, and my daughter is like super smart and has an amazing like life ahead of her.
Yeah.
But we're like, okay.
Yeah.
Like which is she a feminist now because she doesn't want to follow her boyfriend? Anyway, they've made it through all these years of still together. And it's funny, she's moving. She graduated a year early, and then she's moving to his state for his senior year. And she's like, but I'm like, it's all on her own terms, you know? She's like, now I get to go have fun with his senior year. But she's moving in with like some girlfriends, not with him. You know, I'm like, this is so fucking rad because this is a woman. Like this is you're setting yourself up for a really good place in your life to not get like fucked around with.
Yeah.
And I didn't make those choices. I made like follow the person around choices, and
me
is
too.
where it kind of goes.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love too that I think what happens too is when we like push ourselves into that pigeonhole of like, this is what I'm supposed to do. And I think it happens to the guys too, like, you know, in all fairness to them, that they end up in the same fantasy and it's not what they want. They just don't exit it properly. But you know, I think we're all like told like this is what you're supposed to have, and you know, these kids, like your daughter, is now able to say, do I really want that, or how do I want that? How do I want it to look? Like my son really feels like he wants to be like the dual income, no kids. Like, cool, that's great. You know,
what are those called? Dilks or something?
I think they're dinks.
Dinks.
Yep. He wants to be a dink.
I love it. We're here for the dinks.
Yes.
I'd rather you be a dink than a dick. So like,
yes, exactly. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. He's a good guy. Yeah.
Well, okay. So tell us again, where can our besties find you?
So right now it's Single Mom Society _ for Instagram. I'm on TikTok. I'm just not as good. Instagram, I get back to people really quickly. And the podcast is Single Mom Society Podcast, which is, you know, available everywhere that you get podcasts. And then, like I say, it's available wherever the fuck you get podcasts. But, and on that, I, you know, really try. There's definitely a lightness to it, like, you know, my energy, but I really, really tried, just like you do, to bring these really important experts to the table to same exact message that you have. Like, let's help women, like as many women as we can reach. And then this website will be up. So if you go to my Instagram, there's a link to an email list, and then the email list will get you to the website when it launches. And we might be changing from Single Mom Society to Single Moms Uncensored is my guess. So just keep that in mind whenever this airs, that it could be Single Moms Uncensored. So,
I like that. If I was to put my vote in, I like that.
Yeah, I like it too. And there's quite a few single mom societies, as it turns out. So yeah. But that's the whole point, is like the same thing that you do. We're going to have a real talk about this, and we're not going to censor ourselves anymore.
Radical feminism.
I know, we're so horrible. It's so disgusting.
Keep your legs closed, Jennifer. Okay?
Yes. Okay, you too.
Have good. I hope you enjoy your Botox with your child support. Get your nails done.
Yeah, we're going to go. I'm going over to Gucci right now.
Okay, amazing. I'll meet you there.
Yeah. Do I need to take a picture?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Bitch Sesh. You are a baddie, and you are one of our new BFFs. If you'd like to join our society, We are putting a group of women together that are out there changing women's worlds. And we are the bitches fighting for freedom. So,
Oh, I love that. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jennifer, joining us on this episode of Bitch Sesh. I love that you're showing that moms are doing it solo, but not small. And it's such a vibe, and I love it. Thank you for hanging out with us on Bitch Sesh. And we will see you again next time. Bye, besties. Bitches being bad.